Joe Musso alongside Emory, Hunt, and Lige. Douzable, fellas, that was not the straightforward route to victory. Tell me how Detroit got there. What changed in the second half in their game plan, in their scheme, that led to an ultimate victory?
Nothing at all. That's why they came back and won this football game, guys, because when you think about what they are known for, running the ball, coming off play action, intermediate passing game, and what they did was what I tell folks all the time you have to do when you're trying to come back. Don't panic, because you're only down 2 possessions, 2 plays essentially. Just play your game. They stuck with their run game. We saw Jahmyr Gibbs have a fantastic second half. We saw David Montgomery do some good things in the second half, which opened up their play-action passing game. And most importantly, guys, they stopped turning the ball over. 5 interceptions, although they did have a couple of interceptions in the second half. But at the end of the day, you don't turn the ball over. You maintain some of those possessions. You maximize.
Detroit becomes the first team since 1970 to win when trailing by 15 or more and also throwing 5 or more interceptions. You can only put yourself so far behind the 8 ball and still find a way to win. They do, Deuce. And I want to dovetail off of something Emory said here. What sort of discipline does it take to remain steadfast in the run game when you are chasing multiple possessions?
That's how you know the culture in Detroit is amazing, right? Because this team, even though they were down significantly in this game, they always had faith and believe. And Emory, from the offensive standpoint, I don't think they changed much. What I will say is that they got the sun god involved in the second half. Amon-Ra St. Brown was so pivotal for them on pivotal third downs, right? Play design by Ben Johnson, the way he was able to get that touchdown. You fake the screen left, you bring him in motion, you're out leverage, you get your offensive line out in front, and he's going to sniff the goal line and get in. But I love what they did on defense. Emory actually called you, I believe it was at halftime, and said, what is Aaron Glenn doing? He's been known to bring pressure. They were only rushing 4 the first half. Did they not forget Aiden Hutchinson isn't there anymore? C.J. Stroud, Moose, you're an avid golfer. You know how it is. The first tee, you're probably going to get, a mulligan. You get 2 off the tee, right? But by your 3rd or 4th hole, you're comfortable. You're in a rhythm. Well, they allowed C.J. Stroud to be in a rhythm the first half. Well, in the second half, Aaron Glenn said, forget that. If we're going to go down, we're going to go down how we go down. We're bringing pressure, and we trust these defensive backs to win in man coverage, and that's exactly what they did. Carlton Davis, 2 big interceptions coming out in the second half. I love what Aaron Glenn did in the second half. He said, if we're going down, we're going to go down our way.
I agree with you here, Deuce. 2 off the tee seems good amongst friends, but sometimes it's that hot dog at the turn that gets you. Is this Houston team looking at their second half and saying, we got too conservative? Where did their game plan change in your eyes, Deuce?
Yeah, again, they didn't have as many answers for pressure in the second half like they did in the first half. I remember tweeting you guys the swing screen, right? When Detroit did bring some pressure, Joe Mixon had an explosive run. Also, when C.J. Stroud got in a rhythm and they did bring pressure, he knew where to find John Mechie, who had a heck of a game in zone coverage. But in the second half, it seems like the offensive line kind of broke down when it came to some of that protection. I believe Aaron Glenn heated them up more. Instead of just sitting in 5, he was sitting in 6 guys at times, and they just had no answer for it. And the biggest concern for the Houston Texans is what we talked about in the pregame. Joe Mixon in the run game was non-existent today. Like, they could not get him going in the run game, which I was a little bit surprised because how effective he's been this year and how physical he is when he runs the football. When you're not able to run the ball, you become one-dimensional moves. So the Lions didn't respect them running the ball the second half because they could never get Joe Mixon going. They put it all on C.J. Stroud on the offensive line, and they were not able to come away with a victory in the second half. Matter of fact, they were held blankless in the second half. They didn't score 1 point the second half.
Just to add a little bit more seasoning to Chef Dou's meal that he just laid out there perfectly, because at the end of the day, when we saw C.J. Stroud in the first half, he was right. He had answers to everything. And then in the second half, we saw him get a bit skittish in the pocket, hold the football a little bit too long. That's how he missed that deep touchdown pass to Tank Dell that ended up being intercepted by Carlton Davis. And then we saw the run game, or lack thereof. We saw Joe Mixon have success on the screen, the swing screen that Deuce put out perfectly. And also, just by giving him the football as a traditional tailback, they weren't able to do that, and that was a big issue why those quick possessions allowed Detroit to get back in the game.
I'm going to be very interested to see how these 2 teams move forward from this, specifically Houston, this second half where, as you said, Deuce, they were blank. But for the Lions, is this the perfect piece of tape for Dan Campbell to bring to his team and say, your record is this. You're not as good as you think. We can be better. Is this Is this an opportunity for them to grow even from this moment, especially that first half that they played, Emory? Absolutely,
because you could see a team that was feeling themselves. They heard all about each other, how great they are, how great Jared Goff is playing, completing 80+% of his passes, runner-up to MVP, or so maybe in some cases a lead dog in the MVP race. But this is what humbles you. The game itself humbles you, number one, because you get smacked around all throughout the game. But in this ball game, this was the perfect matchup for Detroit's run game, Detroit's blocking, Detroit's pass rush. All got that humble pie, and it's like, all right, now we got to go back to work. I expect Detroit to come out in their next game blowing the doors off. It doesn't matter who they play.
We talk about winning in different ways. You don't want to choose this way, but they find a way here on Sunday Night Football. Deuce, Emory, great stuff as always. We take a look at some numbers coming off of this one. Quarterbacks to win and throw 5 or more interceptions in a game. Well, there's a through line here. Tony Romo, Matt Ryan, and Jared Goff.
Goff working for CBS?
I was saying, looking for a job, bro. Looking for a job. It's beyond my pay grade, Emory, huh?